Hello, welcome to a new episode of our Roundtable series, Ops in Motion. I'm Kawal. Today, Chris Willis has joined me. He has been Marketo champion 5 times. He's a founder and GTM operation consultant at GTM Wranglers. And he also works as a freelance consultant at many leading marketing operation consulting agencies. Hey, Chris, good morning. And I'm so excited to have you here with me and really excited for today's conversation. Let's
Thank
get
you.
started. Yeah, sure. Let's get started. And do you want to start with introduction about yourself, telling more about yourself?
I thought you gave a really good introduction of myself.
Thank
So, a little bit about myself for those who don't know me, live in the Mountain West area. I live in Wyoming now. Lived all over the place. I've been in marketing ops for really RevOps for about 16, 17 years. So I've been like in different revenue marketing, sales operations roles for quite a while. And really, it's interesting because I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but like my career is one that has been constantly evolving and recreating itself over time. Like I've been working kind of professionally a lot longer than marketing operations has been in existence, even though I've also come to the conclusion that most of us have been doing marketing operations probably longer than marketing operations has been in existence,
Oh,
if that
yes.
makes any sense. But I'm one of these weird people that love change. So it doesn't really scare me. I think if it doesn't scare you a little bit, you're a little nuts. I think we as operators should embrace and accept and own change because ultimately that's what makes us successful as professionals, especially in today's environment where there is constant change.
Right. I mean, I totally agree with you. We have seen over this 1 decade, like so much of changes in marketing operations. We just started with supporting different teams with different tasks and creating those workflows and trying to send those emails out, right? And we had this data was part of some other team, and the processes were part of other team. But slowly and gradually, ops started taking the ownership of that, and they have made immense progress in terms of aligning that and strategizing them and making them work how they are supposed to work. So that's been
Mhm.
really great, I think. So as you also mentioned that you've been in marketing operations for more than a decade. So what marketing operation looks like today was very different. I mean, a decade ago, right? What started was like campaign support that involved into strategy, data, and even
Mhm.
revenue ownership, right? So from your perspective, how has marketing operation evolved over time? And looking ahead, what kind of long-term career options do you think this field can really open up for people who are building their career in this field?
Well, thanks. Well, and also thinking about like the evolution of marketing operations, I really thought about like that marketing operations has been around much longer than, 10, 20 years or
Yes.
whenever the official title existed. Thinking about like the fundamentals, which I tend to think about this a lot, ultimately are the fundamentals of what we're trying to accomplish, what makes us successful as marketing operations, or like I would even expand this to revenue operations. I'm a big
Yes.
believer in that marketing operations is part of a larger revenue operations ecosystem. I define it a little bit differently than it's being defined right now. But ultimately, if I think about like the core of what marketing operations does, it's we essentially enable all of the creative and communication and like revenue impact side of marketing and all of the revenue functions that are connected to marketing to essentially be able to execute predictably, and be able to measure performance. So this has existed long before marketing
Yes.
automation systems existed. Part of my career evolution is I was initially a database developer when I started my career, went back to school to get my MBA, and I got my MBA in brand marketing and largely to do CPG, push boxes of Fruit Loops out on the shelf with pictures of, Disney characters and I'm sure I'm botching somebody's marketing campaign right now saying that. But ultimately, and I somewhat got this during my internship that essentially what brand marketing professionals are doing in these companies are essentially marketing operations. It looks a little bit differently than what we do in
Mhm.
B2B or what like the B2C marketing operations folks do, but essentially in that world. And I'm going to be dating myself a little bit, but you're essentially planning out calendaring campaigns, planning measurement strategies, and doing a lot of data analysis to determine what worked and what didn't work. And instead of, the BI tools and the spreadsheets and the marketing automation systems, is you're essentially working with like category managers and getting data feeds from retailers. But essentially the fundamentals are the same. You're enabling marketing to execute and measure impact to revenue. So thinking about that, fast forward, I started out in sales operations to some degree. I was marketing operation, like somewhat of a marketing analyst, sales operations hybrid. I set up Salesforce for a small acquired company, and then they noticed my CRM skills were really good, and they decided to put me in the sales ops group. And I worked with like our enterprise sales people doing pipeline management, but always had a love for marketing, and um, joined several kind of organizations really focused on Marketo. And I love Marketo. I've become a little bit more platform agnostic lately, and we can talk a little bit to that a little bit later. But really, really believe in, helping marketing really execute well, and also align with their sales partners. So I love that I started out in sales ops because I also have that perspective of looking at the entire supply chain of revenue, not necessarily just at, we're just getting an email out or we're just going to run a webinar, but looking at like, okay, how does this impact things downstream in the sales organization? I think when we did start out, like we were largely the steward of these, the marketing automation system, the marketing tech stack, and largely we could become experts in one tool. We can be experts in, Marketo or HubSpot or Eloqua if you're still in the Eloqua world, which I know some of you all are. But there is, and largely I'm going to date myself a little bit, but largely technology has always evolved. And so we've had these large tech hype cycles over time where one technology is seen as the end all be all of all things. I remember when it was the internet and it was Microsoft owned. I mean, so talk about evolution. I remember when Microsoft owned the internet, which is ridiculous to think about now, but there was a day when that happened. And like I've seen how people base their careers on one particular technology, and then something happens in the market because everything's market driven. Something happens in the market where that technology gets upended. Either it is relegated to a different place in the tech stack, or that vendor changes strategy, or that vendor gets acquired, and you always have to adapt. So today it's the adoption of AI, and like is definitely still moving up the hype cycle. And I think at some point we are going to have a point of disillusionment where we're going to ask the question, what are we really doing with this? What's the value of this? And ultimately thinking about things like the human cost of deploying AI in certain places and determining how do we create a AI-centric world that allows us to be profitable, allows us to be productive, but also works towards human flourishing, which I think we will eventually get to. But I think those questions are starting to be asked, but we're going to get there. But if I'm thinking about long-term career options, one thing I would definitely encourage people in this audience to do is really think about the fundamentals. Think about what ultimately makes us valuable as operators, and think about the human side of what we do. Like, we're essentially the group that's helping marketing execute, connect with business partners and sales, and measure the effectiveness of what happens. And I would also add, because I've seen a lot of weakness when we just look at this from the technical perspective, be able to tell a story around it. You have to be able to tell a story around it, because for one, those are the things that are not going to be able to be automated out through AI. Yes. Those are the human side, the strategic side, using our human intellect to bring value that cannot be in automated systems. But also, these are also things that are platform agnostic. So ultimately, if you view yourself as doing these things and being an operational steward of how marketing succeeds, ultimately how you get there, which is largely determined by company IT strategy, marketing strategy, vendor price negotiations, all of those things. You can do that with Marketo, you could do that with HubSpot, you can do that with Eloqua. And if you think of yourself as a business partner and learn how to apply different tools to that, it makes you very valuable in this space, especially with as much switching and technology disruption that's happening right now.
Yeah. I mean, marketing operations has evolved, as you mentioned, a lot because earlier we were just thinking of task. Now we started thinking about how it could be developed as a strategic function. And now we have AI in the mix. So we are still, AI is hyped and we are trying
Mm-hmm.
to use AI as much as possible. And then we are also trying to see like how we can add the human element there because AI right now is not that leveled up or it's not that at that position to do that work for us what human is able to do that, so we always need a human intervention, and there would be like few more years for AI to reach there, or maybe AI may not reach there, so that's really difficult to say today. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, marketing operation evolution has been so nice in terms of the tools and the processes because we had a bunch of tools, or earlier we had just 2 to 3 options in terms of CRM or marketing automation platform. But as we move forward over these years, we have a huge number of options or stack available to us. It's really
Mm-hmm.
difficult for enterprises or even the startups to decide like which tool they would go with, because some of them would have one feature which is really good at that, the other may be missing that feature. And I think in that process also, companies are adopting a lot of tech, and that is
Mm-hmm.
also, I mean, it's not even good, but yes, we want to learn more with technology. We want to do more with technology. So yeah, we have seen a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
evolvement in marketing operation world.
Well, one
Yeah.
thing I'd also add with
Mhm.
technology and like,
Mhm.
especially folks that are in-house, and I spent most of my career in-house. As a consultant, I do work with a lot of companies that are like in doing a lot of M&A, mergers and
Mm.
acquisition work. And so one thing that you will see, and this really goes to the why of being platform agnostic, is that, you know, when a company is growing by purchasing other companies, or like in the startup world, there's a strategy for you to get acquired by a larger company. And you may be, let's say you're on a startup company and you're using HubSpot. And if you really think of yourself as a HubSpot person, I see a lot of this out in the
Yeah.
market. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I see that on this side with Marketo as well, is eventually your company gets acquired and there will be a discussion about like, okay, how do we integrate this company's operations into
Yes.
the larger ecosystem? And every company
Mm.
has its own philosophy on that. The majority of them are going to essentially migrate that smaller company's map, CRM, et cetera, into the larger companies' map CRMs. The larger companies are a lot of are using Marketo, and just as an example. So if you just lock yourself in and you say, hey, I'm just a HubSpot person, and you're not thinking about those larger bits, then there's a lot of disruption that you're going to face, and there's risks that you face when your company gets acquired, because all of a sudden, if your ops skills equals your map skills or whatever technology skills, as soon as that technology is taken away, either you have to go look for the next thing, which I would then really ask the question, are you a marketing operator or are you just a technologist? And that's okay. That's a decision you can make. But if you really want to be an operator, you have to think in operations terms, and that will require at some point you to get outside of your technology and basically learn, okay, how do these other technologies do X?
Yeah.
Life cycle management, campaign execution, et cetera.
Right. I mean, well said, Chris. I mean, it's really important not to be like tool agnostic, as you said. The term is really right. We should know the strategy behind the tool and how it's making it work rather than just focusing on tools, because tools may change tomorrow. Today we have Marketo or
Mhm.
HubSpot. Tomorrow we may have some other tool. So yeah, that's really a different scenario if we are not learning all of those skills, which is more important than the tool skills, I would say. So I have seen that one thing we all have experienced or felt is that marketing operation role does not really stay within one single tool, right? As we are discussing also. And we are always hopping between marketing platform tools and the CRMs and the enrichment data, our day-to-day activity that we do in office. So what's your take on like marketing operational professional developing different skills across multiple platforms? And do you think it is better to go deeper on one and spread your expertise later or learn all of them together? And if someone wants to keep growing, how they can start, or like the tool or the knowledge they should start with, or what do you think is the most practical way of adding new skills without, feeling overwhelmed or like I'm doing too much? I'm just caught up in so many tools or I'm caught up in so many operation processes. So what is the take on that?
Absolutely. And I would definitely encourage, like, I mean, this was my own story is, developing deep expertise in a tech that has some staying power is definitely important. And it's a good way for you to, one, get into ops because generally speaking, all ops roles are kind of technology enabled roles. So you're not necessarily pigeonholing yourself by developing deep expertise in a tool that has some staying power. So for me, it was Salesforce.com initially. And then I bolted on Marketo on top of that and really became deep as a Marketo expert, obviously recognized through the Marketo as a Marketo champion for like the last 5 years, which makes me feel, I think, more old than accomplished, to tell you the truth. But that being said, like once you understand, and that's why I come back to what is the fundamentals of what we
Yes.
do is like ultimately these tools, so CRM, pipeline management, lead management, helping sales organizations, organizations understand what is their pipeline. They want to be able to have better predictability around their sales process so that they can forecast. That's essentially the why behind Salesforce.com. Marketo or any marketing automation system, so put HubSpot, Eloqua, Pardot, Inflection, put those in there. Essentially, what are you doing? You're executing your marketing activities and doing like life cycle, which is marketing pipeline management and aligning with sales. So you're having to talk with your CRM partners a lot and ensuring that everything that you do is measurable. So ultimately, every tool, every marketing automation tool, regardless of, all the hype around it. I know like Inflection just like, is getting a lot of hype because they've just released this more AI centric
Yes.
mechanism, but everybody's got AI in their
Yeah.
platform. Like Adobe's building AI into Marketo, HubSpot's building AI, this Breeze ecosystem in
Yes.
HubSpot. So, but ultimately the fundamentals haven't changed. And so what I would recommend is just understanding that there are certain core things that every marketing automation system, and I'll just stay with marketing automation. You could go into any MarTech system, like essentially it's doing one of those things, is understanding that it is doing these core things that marketers need to happen. I mean, this is going to sound very basic, but just raising your hand and signing up and saying and volunteering for projects and just being willing to be
Yeah.
stupid and
Yes.
ask a lot of dumb questions. For me, I got this aha moment about a year and a half ago. I was, trying to, you know, obtain clients, and I had talked to an old coworker that like she and I had a great working relationship when I was in-house.
Okay.
I was a very valuable extension of her team as part of a center of excellence team that was part of. And like I am, was considered that tip of the spear person in
Oh,
the
great.
organization, right?
Mhm.
So we started talking. She had Marketo and she was to taking on a new role and asked, okay, like let's put together a package. So I came back and, put together some options and then she came back and said, well, and she was working for a smaller company and had told me that they were considering going to HubSpot and probably for a number of reasons, but
Yeah.
won't, I will very quickly say I definitely prefer Marketo over HubSpot and I work in both, but I love a lot of things that HubSpot does. But it was definitely an aha moment for me that I was pigeonholing myself by being in one marketing automation platform. So for me, this is what I started doing as I just started working with people in my consulting network and just say, hey, if you've got like HubSpot work, I would love to get involved. I would love and I took my own advice that I would give to any marketing operator that was starting out in marketing operations in any system is start out doing campaign ops And because that's the core work that these
Yeah.
tools do. So I started doing some campaign ops work for some clients, and my operator mind started taking over because it doesn't shut off. And you
Yeah.
start seeing operational inefficiencies. You start seeing how the tool does all of these bits and pieces. And then you get into, and this is why you're in fundamentals, you get into problem solving mode, and then you learn how to solve these operational problems they have. And so this is how I started kind of incorporating HubSpot into my world. Thankfully it was a fairly short learning curve because it was a fairly straightforward system. There are a lot of weird things in HubSpot to learn. Like, I wouldn't call
Yeah.
myself an expert yet. Anybody who says that HubSpot is easy is lying to you. There's a lot of complexity in there. Like Marketo, it's simple but complex at the same time. So that's
Yes.
what I would just say. Don't follow the hype. If you're using HubSpot, get good operators to use it. They will tell you don't need operators. It's a lie. You need operators.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, like, you know, ultimately my goal was not to become like a platform like expert in another tool. It was really to look at all of these and find common denominators, really to be more focused on ops and being an operator. Because again, I would say the tool matters, like the tool that your company uses matters. So if your company uses Marketo, be a Marketo expert. If your company uses HubSpot, be a HubSpot expert. But ultimately, your job is to be an operator and an enabler of marketing. So that happens regardless of whatever tool you're using. And I think that's the mindset we have to have, is being that ops focused person rather than a technology focused person. That's going to make you a lot more valuable in the long term too.
Yeah, right. Because if we are looking only from the tool perspective and we are just learning the tool, we are going to be that button pusher who just push the buttons and send things out, make things work, sing things together. But at this point, I think it's very important to think strategically and stay curious, because we have a lot more going out in the marketing operation world in terms of AI, in
Mhm.
terms of tools, and so
Yep.
many things keep evolving. So staying curious and learning more with your
Hmm.
colleagues and having get involved in different type of conversations regarding tools. Maybe there are some Slack communities which gives you some nice information
Hmm.
about people asking questions to each other, and when they're asking and the other person is answering, you got to learn many things about those new tools which you might have maybe tried on a trial version or heard from one of your clients. Once you look at those things, you would really learn a few tips and tricks from those tools, from those communities. And yeah,
A hundred
focusing on
percent.
Yes, focusing on processes is really important, not just platform, as you said, because we may hop our jobs, or if there's a merger and acquisition, the tools might change because the acquiring company would like to use their operation tools and would not follow what is being used earlier. So there's a lot of migration, implementation, and new adoption that keeps happening. So to keep us on pace, I think we
Hmm.
should start thinking about strategically and about the processes, and not just
Hmm.
be, get hooked on to one tool.
Yeah, 100%. I would love to learn a little bit about your journey, Kawal. Like, you've taken a fairly similar path to starting your own agency and really enjoy your content. So, what are some of the do's and don'ts that you would advise before somebody starts this journey? And I don't know if I really even talked about my own journey. I was talking a little bit more kind of a
Sure.
little bit more high level, but I'm really curious, especially as somebody who's been in the consulting space for really only 2 years now.
So I would say it's been always a mixed emotion. It was exciting and there was a lot of learning. And starting an agency sounds very glamorous. Hey, I'm going to do something on my own. You get that
True.
you get that control and chance to build something of your own that you always want to do. But the other side is also, you have to work late night on different issues to solve things. There are client calls where you are like strategist and also the executioner, and you have to maintain the balance between like working in the business versus working on the business. So I have been through that, and I think you would have also been there. So the do's for me is, I think I would suggest someone who would like to start something, make sure you have strong network before you leap or plan to do something, so that you have your first source of client or mentors or referrals who can be
Hmm.
helpful for you to start that journey. Because starting is really, really important and crucial. And start small and focus on repeatable frameworks. So you have some tools where you are very good at, or some processes very good at. So you can start with that and then later build on those custom one-off solutions that'll help you to scale nicely. And you can take care of those processes well as and when it comes. And also taking client feedback regularly and seriously is important because it'll help you, shape your services. It tells you like what is, needed to do, or what you're doing is really good. You can just enhance on it. So different learnings out there then. And the don'ts, I would say, like try not to do everything yourself. So what happens in my marketing operations, it has happened with me also. So when I started, I was like, I have to do everything on my own. So never try
Mm,
doing that. Try to, outsource or have an intern if you cannot have full-time someone with you working. So who can assist you? An intern can assist you in your day-to-day activities or help you with some of the internal processes. And don't leave the internal processes the backseat, because internal processes like contract management, invoicing,
mm,
onboarding those interns or full-time employees into your system can make or break your client experience. So if client is not happy with that experience, they are not going to get that nice experience of working with you. And also
mm,
don't chase like every opportunity. Focus on the clients and industries where you think you can make that impact. It's going to be good. You're very sure, you're 100% sure that this is what you want to do. This is what you're very confident about. So yeah, the journey so far has taught me that running an agency is about building connections, trust within the people, managing team, and establishing the foundation that can, survive the up and down that the marketing ops world keeps going, and also the
mhm.
organization keeps going. And at the end of the day, work is rewarding because, as I said, everyone likes to build something of their own and on their own. So that's really exciting. And it's been for me also.
Nice. Yeah, I would, looking at my own experience, would say a lot of the same things. I'm very grateful to have like a lot of kind of back end help in my own organization, and have found, you know, I've definitely found a need out in the market for a lot of this
Mhm.
skill set. I got some really good advice. I work with some really great fractional CMOs and good big brand agencies. So folks like ME Collective, Digital Exhaust, and Market Growth Consulting. And that's been very helpful, especially getting started with those first clients. So like your relationship doesn't and your
Yeah.
network doesn't necessarily need to be like, okay, you need to go and hit up a bunch of CMOs. There are folks that have those relationships that will get and like attract very interesting, amazing projects, and just getting aligned with those folks is a great way to start. I
Yeah.
definitely concur, like your network is everything. So like, this is true if you're laid off and you're looking for your next ops opportunity, or if you're wanting to go out on your own, your network is everything. So you don't need to don't make it more than it is. It's just getting to know people. It's just connecting people and being helpful, but definitely invest in it because it will pay off in the long run.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely. So I think the other thing I can think of is like if I had to start with a blank slate, like what would be the
Hmm.
ideal marketing operation function should look like? So what do you think about it,
Yes.
Chris? If you had to
Yeah.
start, with a blank slate, what do you think the marketing operation should look like? How it should start, and how you
Oh,
think you would think of it?
this is where I get to be very controversial here. Um, I'm curious of what you think too. So when I was in my sales ops role, my leader used the term business partner a lot, and it's really stuck with me. Ultimately, that's kind of the core of what I would create in a marketing operations organization. So not just thinking about a role, because I don't believe that we could, in the myth of the unicorn MOPS person that does everything. Like what we're enabling, the problems that we're trying to solve are way too complex. So I would start with, a strategic enabler and a business partner. And a business partner thinking in terms of like, how can I create value to my partners? So marketing, sales development teams, also downstream. I mean, because everything that impacts revenue, like essentially marketing is the top of the funnel when it
Yeah.
comes to revenue. So thinking about like everybody down the revenue organization, including your accounting team, your legal team, your invoicing processing team, like how do we need to connect with all of those bits and pieces and not just kind of staying I wouldn't build a marketing ops organization that just stayed siloed into the marketing organization and just did marketing things, because I think we're limiting our value and we're limiting our strategic impact. And I really picked up a lot of that from being in a part of a large digital transformation project where my eyes were open to a lot of this machinery and what we needed to think about as operators to really be more of a business strategic and business partner. And I
That's
would, like, this is the controversial part, I would not have it aligned to marketing. I would have it part of a RevOps organization so that
mm,
all of our revenue ops team members, whether it's marketing, sales, lead management, customer success, customer, product operations, we're all talking together. You think about like organizations like function, how they're aligned. So ultimately I want to think about like what are my primary relationships. So my primary relationships are really with my other operators. And
yes.
then going out the concentric circle is my business partners, my primary business partners. So ultimately that's marketing. I have to be very tightly aligned with marketing, but I also don't want to be in a position where marketing is driving all of my goals, which is why I would recommend that RevOps alignment. That has to be very carefully managed though, because if we can be tight business partners with marketing, that relationship falls apart very quickly. But we also have to have tight business relationship with our SDR team and our sales team. So that RevOps alignment allows that very, very well in the concentric circle. So if you think about starting with fellow operators, going to our business partners, and then all the support functions that we need to make everything happen. So like our IT and our accounting and invoicing, yada, yada, yada. And really think about from a like, what are we trying to do? Think about it being outcome driven versus task driven. One ditch I see a lot of marketing operations teams get into is like, we're going to think of ourselves as, we're producing all of this stuff and we're doing the task and the ticket management. And ultimately that's not what gets you the
Mm,
seat at the table. What gets you as a seat at the table is that you can demonstrate and communicate that you're driving business outcomes. So ultimately, if I were to design a marketing ops function, a marketing ops organization, it really be focused on these three things. Now, I'm curious of what you would think.
yeah, so I think I would think on the lines of being that strategic growth engine. So wherein, have different things connected together and different, things are working together. So obviously being a strategic partner is really helpful because marketing operation is sitting at the intersection of marketing, sales, and customer experience or customer service. Now we are trying to help shape the go-to marketing strategy and not just, managing the tech stack. And that means that
Mhm.
operations should be part of the conversations from the beginning. So we would be influencing the revenue decisions
Mhm.
and priorities with the data and the insights or the reporting that we would do. So all of these are very important. And then the other thing would be like connecting the technology and the clean data. So what goes into the system is like, that's what you see, and that's what run the entire mechanism in the tech stack. So the tech stack within the organization should be integrated and should be maintaining the data sanity, and we should keep the data unified. So that way, what happens, the processes that comes out of it or the processes that we run are measurable and scalable.
Mhm.
And the focus should always be in having those fewer tools which does good work and, which is like aligning with the revenue so that we have
Mhm.
deeper adoption
Exactly.
and governance is really controlled. And the other last thing would be like people and process excellence. So I would like to structure the team around, specialized roles. We have data analytics, have automation and
Mhm.
workflows, and we have integrations and we have enablement. So at the same time, I would embed a culture of continuous improvement, learning,
Mhm.
just like processes, speed is maintained, and we are always refining the process. There's clear ownership. So these are the things
Mhm.
I think would help, making marketing operation more successful. And again, if I have to measure, I think I would not try to measure this by operational efficiency, but I would see the business impact that is, being
Mhm.
driven by, looking at the pipeline influence. We have revenue efficiencies that's been driven, and then the customer life cycle, what it has been. So the idea of marketing operation function is not just being the but it should be the backbone that ensure that marketing is accountable and scalable and driving the real growth, and it is
Mhm.
aligning with the business. Very important to have that
Absolutely.
being driven by that. So that would be the starting point that I would think of if I would given a blank slate to run this in any of the organizations.
Fully agree. I love your perspective. That's amazing.
Thank you. I mean, your perspective also on this was really nice. I really enjoyed the conversation with you, Chris. I think
I did too.
had we touched the different topics at different levels, and we also went deep into few of the topics. That was really nice. So I think we are almost end of our discussion, and it was really, really nice talking to you. And thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much, Kawal. It's been a pleasure.